Welcome to the latest BuffZone Podcast. I'm Brian Howell. I'm pleased, as always, to be joined by my colleague Pat Rooney. And Pat, how you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Good to be back in Colorado for this podcast.
Yeah, last week was from sunny
Ro-
Maui, although we couldn't see it. You know,
Uh,
from
I tried, folks.
you
It was
did
just, it
try.
was just too sunny.
Yeah, don't make the people mad at you, Pat. Um, but yeah, obviously, we talked about it last week. An interesting Maui Invitational for the men, and we'll get into that men's basketball because they got a big matchup this week, a big in-state matchup later on this week. But let's start with football and wrapping up the regular season and yeah, a game against Oklahoma State that I don't think anybody was surprised to see you won it. I think a lot of us were
Yeah.
surprised that it was 52-0.
Yeah, pretty wild. Yeah, Oklahoma State, some of that's on them. They didn't really show
Oh
up,
yeah.
and finish the season. It's been a miserable season for them. Not to criticize, but the Buffs did what they're supposed to do. They had a little spell there in the second quarter where they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit. It could have been a lot worse at halftime, but obviously after halftime, that became a distant memory. Ran away with that one. Boy, didn't quite get the help they needed. The rest of us on Friday, obviously. On Saturday, the way things played out right down to the end of that Houston BYU game. I know we were messaging and both watching that late, but fell short, but still pretty cool to see it literally come down to the last minutes of the last Big 12 game to see who was going to be in the title game.
Yeah, it came down to like a 36-yard loss on a sack and fumble by
Yeah.
Houston. But yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're pinning your hopes on a 4-8 team going on the road and trying to get you a victory, that's always tough. But it did make it exciting. I mean, I think all Buff fans. I did see that the ratings were pretty solid for that Houston BYU game, and I imagine that's because of CU fans were tuning in
Well,
just to
sure.
find out what was going on with that one. So I can't imagine there were a lot of Houston fans tuning into that one.
Sure. And even going into it, Houston's picked up a couple wins you didn't expect them to along the way. And just the way, well, we talked about last week, just the way I think I wrote about in the column, my column after the game, just the way the Big 12 has played out this year. You felt like it would go down to the wire like
Mhm.
that, that it wouldn't be easy. BYU has been, has come back down to earth a little bit over the past month as well. So made for an exciting Saturday. Not quite for the Buffs. They kind of ruined their chance to keep it in their own destiny with the loss at Kansas. But boy, still a heck of a season sitting here 9-3, just kind of waiting to see what happens with the bowl game.
Yeah, we'll find out Sunday morning ish. It's somewhere between I think 10 and noon. We should find out where the Buffs are going. It does appear when you look at everything that Alamo is the most likely. Holiday is still a possibility. So we'll find out. I think a lot of it comes down to that Big 12 title game. If ASU wins it, then I think CU is a lock for the Alamo Bowl. If ASU loses it, then it becomes interesting to see what the Alamo is going to do because they have their choice of Pac-12 teams. ASU would be the highest ranked team,
Yeah.
but do they really want a rematch between ASU and BYU? That would be their highest ranked matchup possible, so they could go with that, but um, we'll see. Buff fans are either going to go to San Antonio or San Diego, and those aren't bad options either way.
Yeah, can I just say, conference realignment, whatever, but it is just so silly that they're still regarded as Pac-12 teams for these bowl matchups and probably have to play a Big 12 team in that Alamo Bowl if the Buffs go to that. It's just, what are we doing,
Right.
But can't change it. Can't change it at this point. Still a great destination for the Buffs. And just kind of waiting to see what happens now. There's not much you can do, but sit and wait. And I'm sure we'll see Sunday morning where you'll be going, Brian. Do you have a preference? You've been to the Alamo Bowl a couple
Well,
times now.
yeah, and because of that, I'd rather go to San Diego and do the Holiday
Yeah,
Bowl. I mean, I've covered three bowl games in my life, and two were the Alamo Bowl. The other one was the Celebration Bowl when I went and saw Coach Prime's Jackson State team, a couple years ago in Atlanta. So, but I've been to Alamo twice with CU, and that's the only bowl game I've covered for them. And it's a good city. It's a fun city, and they do it well.
yeah,
But it's also a dome, and I don't
yeah,
like dome
yeah.
games. And so I'd rather go to San Diego, honestly.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And nothing I'm saying. I love, go the Alamo Bowl would be great, but
Yeah,
San Diego, you can't beat San Diego, especially in late December. Perfect.
right. San Diego over Christmas, and I'll take that. So, but we'll find out on Sunday. And
Yeah.
one thing we do know, what we've been told, is that Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter will play in that bowl game. And I was actually watching, they both do their own podcasts, and they both separately talked about playing in the bowl game. And Travis, the guy he was doing his podcast with, asked, "Hey, Buff fans all want to know, are you going to play in this bowl game?" And he teased and said, "No, I'm not playing. You got to give me $5 million to do that." And then he kind of laughed and he goes, "No, I'm playing." He goes, "We already said we're playing." And so we do know, barring something weird, that we're going to see Shador and Travis one more time, and so that's exciting. Which means that we'll see Coach Prime one more time coaching at least. And I think you and I were talking before we started that what does that mean for his future? Well, I would imagine if he's still here and coaching that bowl game, he's going to be here in 2025.
I think that's pretty, well, kind of one of the things I don't think is getting talked about enough is just if you'd have told me before the year they'd go 9-3, and most of the Florida schools are train wrecks and possibly looking for new coaches, some already. His most likely NFL suitor seemingly would be Dallas, and they might be in a situation where they'll be looking for, a quarterback and a coach. I mean, you don't know yet, but if he'd have told me all these factors would be in play at the end of the season, I thought for sure he would be kind of moving on. I keep going back to what he said to his Jackson State team, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's the video when he was kind of telling them that he was going to take the Colorado job. And he said something in the effect of, if in coaching, if you're not moving up, you're going back. And I thought with a season, if they was gonna if they had a season like this, it would be kind of onward and upward for him. But it doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, yes, he has said that he intends to stay. That's kind of been his message all along
Mhm.
when he's been asked. But you and I know that. I mean, what else is he going to say in the middle of a season? Even if he was secretly talking to somebody, he's not going to say that.
Right.
So, he said all the right things, but kind of come around to, maybe he is going to stick around here. He says he likes it here. To me, a lot of it is in the recruiting class. And, not that they've just signed a good one, but that a lot of the key figures in it flip their recruitment to Colorado. And that tells me they believe that Deion Sanders will be here next year. So you kind of have to come around the idea. We're into early December now. The coaching hot stove league gets kind of underway at this point, and the mums the word kind of out of at this point last year we were having the introductory press conference for him in Boulder. Now, granted, the job here at CU had been open for a little bit essentially, but still, that now's the time is when that happens, and it's
Yeah.
been surprisingly quiet around him, and it maybe speaks to, yeah, maybe the plan is to stick around here longer than his sons.
Well, and I mean, to your point with recruiting, they're not recruiting like a staff that's looking elsewhere.
Yeah, right.
I think a staff that's looking elsewhere is not trying really hard to flip guys from Ohio State and Alabama and places like that. And you know, I thought about what you're saying about if you're not moving up, you're kind of staying stale or whatever it is with coaching. I think that there's a way for him to move up by just staying put. In that,
Yeah.
there's a new challenge um, next year, to prove that he can do this without Shador as the quarterback and without Travis Hunter, without the Heisman, well, what I think is going to be the Heisman Trophy winner, playing both sides of the ball. So I think there's a really good challenge for him as a coach to kind of elevate his profile as a coach by just staying here and continuing to coach Colorado. And I think he likes that. And so I'll be honest. I mean, I've said from day one, I thought that this was kind of a 2-year deal, and that he would move on. I never thought he would leave Colorado and go coach somewhere else. I always thought he would leave Colorado and maybe go into broadcasting or something like that. I've now come off of that. I think that he's here in 2025, and we'll see beyond that. But I think that so many signs are pointing to him coming back. And I mean, even look, He's got to put his money where his mouth is, right? But even Shador after the game the other day was saying, "I'm going to donate to the collective." He's
Yes.
not donating to the collective if his dad's not the head coach, and so we'll see if he actually does donate. But um, he did double down on that on his podcast and said, "Yeah, he'll donate some money."
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. I kind of thought this would be a 2-year deal. Like I said before, especially with the season they had. I thought his ticket would be punched to wherever he want. Unlike you, I did think he might go on to coach somewhere else after this year. But yeah, but I agree. I'm the same way. I've kind of come around, and all signs are pointing to him coming back. And like I said, a lot of it's in the recruiting class. They're not recruiting like a team or a staff that's halfway out the door. And a lot of times with these things, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there hasn't been any smoke whatsoever so
Yeah,
far. So, interesting development. Great news for Buffs fans, and something to look forward to. And I agree with you. Maybe there's something for him to prove to build a consistent winner. It doesn't have to be playing for a national championship every year, but in years past, we've used Utah as an example. If you can pencil in 7-5 every year and build from there. Maybe it's not the last time that Deion Sanders will be a hot ticket in the coaching world.
yeah. I mean, honestly, as I look at it right now, we have no idea what the whole roster is going to look like. But as we see it right now, we think they're going to have a 17-year-old true freshman quarterback next year. If they're a bowl team next year with that, and not obviously Juju's very talented, but you don't see true freshmen a lot of times, have a great deal of success. But if they can post Shador, post Travis, be a 7-5, 8-4 type of team, or even better,
Yeah.
you know, uh, that's as impressive on Deion Sanders' coaching resume as what he's done to this point, in my opinion. And so we'll see. And
Yeah. Honestly, if they did that, in a lot of ways, that's a better coaching job than even this year,
right,
just because you have Shador and you have Travis Hunter.
right. Yeah. And as far as the smoke, I mean, there was a lot of smoke around Deion Sanders in 2022, right? For the last
Right.
month of that season with Jackson State, his name was thrown all over the place. And really, other than the talking heads at ESPN wishing that he was with the Dallas Cowboys,
Yeah.
there's no legitimate smoke, with
Yeah, and
around Deion
especially like I
Sanders'
said,
name.
even with a lot of the Florida schools, including his alma mater, having a terrible season at Florida State, you would think it'd be kind of strike when the iron is hot sort of situation, but to get him back to his home state, that would be an incredible story as well. But as we said, all signs are pointing to him being back next year.
Well, Florida State, I mean, they've backed Norvell, and they went out and hired Gus Malzahn as offensive coordinator the other day. So they wouldn't be doing
Yeah,
that if they were looking for a coaching change either. So yeah, I think a lot of signs point to Deion Sanders coming back, and that's exciting for Buff fans. And um, I don't know about you, but I know we got a bowl game to worry about, but just real quick, I mean, I'm curious and excited to see what a post Shador and Travis CU Buffs team looks like, without Coach Prime or with Coach Prime. So I think it'll be interesting to see 2025.
absolutely. But still a bowl game to go. We will find out Sunday. And obviously, Brian will have all the coverage at our website and so forth. But what do you think of the matchup? I mean, if it's the Alamo Bowl and another, I kind of made light of playing possibly BYU, a conference team. At least they didn't play each other this year. But
Yeah.
what do you kind of foresee this matchup playing out? And how much of it depends on that title game result in the Big 12?
Yeah, I don't know about a lot of it, but I think certainly that's a game to watch. I think if ASU wins that game, they're going to go to the CFP, and the Alamo has their choice of Pac-12 teams, but there's really no choice other than Colorado. I mean, their choices beyond that would be Washington State, who's 8-4 and lost three in a row, and then a trio of 6-6 teams. So,
Right.
and I was looking at some things last night, Pat, and the Alamo for it's been a Big 12 Pac-12 matchup for a very long time, and they've always taken the top ranked Big 12 team and the top ranked Pac-12 team available to them. And so based on that, it'll be CSU if ASU wins this game, right?
Yeah.
And then it would be BYU, BYU or Iowa State. And yes, it's a conference team, but the last time they played BYU,
Off the top of my head, no, but it was a long time ago.
I'll just tell you this. It was Darian Hagan's first career start.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was the Freedom Bowl in 1988. Sal Nesti was not feeling well, and obviously before the next season he or
Yeah.
during the next season he passed away, but he was not feeling well, and Darian Hagan took the reins that night, and BYU beat him in the Freedom Bowl. And Iowa State they haven't played him since 2010. So yes, it's a conference matchup, but it's not a team they've seen anytime recently. So the other factor is if ASU loses this game, then I think it gets interesting because if ASU loses, that means Iowa State goes to the CFP, and the top Big 12 team is BYU. And so ASU and BYU just played a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, um, but that would be the top ranked matchup the Alamo could get, and that's what they've traditionally done. So, do they go with the highest ranked possible matchup? That's the only way they could get a top 20 matchup would be ASU versus BYU. Or do they really want to avoid that rematch? And so I think it comes down to that. And ASU is going to be 5, 6, 7 spots ahead of Colorado in the CFP, and so there's a lot of justification for taking ASU over Colorado.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. And you're right. At least they haven't played these teams in a while and all that. It's just,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
weird,
I'd hate to see a bowl game and then, that's the conference opener in a few months.
right? Right, and it could be, but
Yeah.
but that's the world we live in right now for
Yeah.
this year and next year, and that's what conference realignment has done. Is that uh, yes, you might have that, and it's unfortunate, but what are you going to do? I mean, I think if you're the Alamo and you look at that, you knew it was a possibility because now coming into the season, you never thought BYU or CU or ASU would be possibilities because they were bottom of the rung teams as far as the preseason projections. So they were probably looking at maybe we could get USC versus
Yeah.
versus Kansas State. That'd be a pretty cool bowl game. Well, no, you're not
Yeah.
getting that.
No. 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 Some of these matchups have been wild. I wrote a little bit about this the other day. I enjoyed that last week in the regular season, not just in the Big 12, but across college football. I think the 12-team playoff served the goal for sure of making that last week of the regular season interesting across the board and a lot of playoff implications with a lot of games across the country.
Yeah, it certainly made it exciting, and you've got teams like I mean it's crazy. You're coming into conference title weekend, and you got teams like UNLV, who
Yeah,
is number 21 or whatever. They got a shot to be in the college football playoff, and Clemson, who otherwise would be dead in the water, has a shot to get in. So it makes it more exciting. I like that, and I don't like the format to where you legitimately could have like the 10th best team, meaning Boise State, have a first round bye, or yeah, while the third best team in the country in theory, Penn State, has to play in the first round. So
yeah.
I would rather see a scenario where the top 4 teams by rankings get the bye, and then you go from there. But that's a whole other discussion. Personally, I'd rather see a 16 team playoff and just you go 1 through 16, they're in, and then you see them that way.
I agree with you. I would prefer a 16 team. I've said that in the past, but the SEC and the Big Ten want their bye. So
Yeah,
that's why we're 12. I think they would go to 24 for that reason before they go to 16 to still allow for buys for the top team. I don't know. I'm torn on the format because if you're going to have conference championship games, they need to mean something.
right,
Um, and I think if you are just taking the top four seeds, you're rewarding teams potentially that don't even get to their conference championship team game, and then possibly punishing one of the two that do get there. So I don't know, and I don't know if there's a good answer to that. I don't know what it is. So I like that the championship games mean something. Um, but either way, it's not going to be a perfect system, right? So,
right.
there's going to be a problem no matter what, one way or the other. I think I prefer making the championship games mean something even with the occasional flaw, as you pointed out, possibly the number 10 seat overall getting a bye.
And see, for me personally, I would go 16 teams. I would get rid of the championship games. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Maybe make the regular season one game longer and get rid of championship games.
I don't even think you need to make it longer. I mean, it 12 games and then you go on to a 16 team playoff, and because whoever wins it would wind up playing 16 games, which is a lot, you know. So I would just get rid of it, and tiebreakers determines who your conference champion is, and I mean that's the way they do it at other levels. I mean there's no, as far as I know, there's no conference title games in Division three and Division two and things like that. So that's the way I would do it. I'd get rid of conference title games, and because there's a lot of teams right now. Like I saw South Carolina's coach was upset that there's other teams that have these data points coming up this weekend that they don't have another chance for one. So it
Yeah.
it makes it an unbalanced field at this point. And when a team like Alabama can just sit pretty, they're not in the title game, and you know they can just sit back. And the SMU coach, I saw him the other day. He was asked, "Do you think teams will try to avoid being in conference title games? Would rather not play them?" He goes, "Absolutely." He goes, "Why would you want to play that
Yeah.
extra game where you could get dinged when in Alabama is sitting at home or Miami sitting at home doing nothing?" So it almost hurt. It
It
almost
helps
it almost
teams like
hurts. Yeah, I mean,
it hurts some teams. It only helps the teams where they're not going to get in otherwise.
right,
With that automatic bid. But I don't know that it helps necessarily to the Big Ten or the SEC champion or championship game runner up.
right, yeah. So it's an interesting situation. I would get rid of him. I'd go 16 teams, and even if you did 24, that's fine. But either way, I would get rid of those conference title games. But you know, until they ask you and I to solve this and run college football, all we have is opinions. And
Well, I'm sure that day is right around the corner, Mr.
yes,
Howell. But
yeah,
before
it
we get
is.
out of here, let's talk a little hoops real quick. First of you were out at the women's game the other day, knocked off Tennessee Tech. I had a tough one against Louisville, with Louisville number 24 kind of pulled away late. But your takeaway from them kind of bouncing back and getting that win against a little scrappy Tennessee Tech team.
First off, that Louisville game, I mean, it was an 8 point loss. And for about 37 minutes, I thought the Buffs were the better team. And there was a 3 minute stretch in the fourth where they had like six straight turnovers and it turned into, 16 straight points for Louisville. And that was the ball game. So outside of those 3 minutes, I thought they were the better team. They looked pretty good. And then Tennessee Tech, um, these games are tricky, and it's the same on the men's side. Is that there are these scrappy teams that they got some pretty good players, right? That maybe they're not the power five level or whatever, but you get like these scrappy guards, and if they're hitting shots, they're going to be in the game, and that's what Tennessee Tech did. Is they hit some shots and they stayed in the game, but the Buffs offense looked phenomenal, and they were able to bounce back and get a win, and then they got one coming up on Saturday against Southern Utah, I believe it is. So another one on Saturday, then they play DU next Tuesday. So a couple more games before they jump into conference play.
Yeah, same with the men. We kind of wrapped up Maui a little bit on our last podcast remotely, but
Yeah.
um, a big one, doubleheader on Saturday with the women, kind of the old split doubleheader, but rivalry showdown Saturday night. Colorado State coming to town. They picked up the win Monday night against Pacific. Kind of played out exactly how Tad Boyle was concerned about exiting Maui that first game after a trip like that. Monday, they didn't get back till the Friday morning. They took a red eye overnight, kind of Thanksgiving night overnight. Got back Friday, didn't really get back to work until Saturday. Had a game Monday night.
Mhm.
No excuses. They should play better. But that's a pretty quick turnaround after a trip like that. And that first half, they sort of played like it. But they got their act together. Second half wound up going, winning, going away a little bit. But really the last big test of the non-conference schedule here with Colorado State. Rams won last night as we're talking here against Loyola Marymount. But are coming off a really good win against TCU. Former Buff Nick Clifford is playing great right now. And in his return, obviously, it'll be a little subplot to the game on Saturday night at the event center. But when if this team is going to have it all, maybe an NIT run in them or anything like that, even remotely close, they have to win this game.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Big 12 is going to be a grind. There's not going to be an easy game there. You have to take care of business the rest of the way in non-conference play, and this is the toughest one on Saturday night.
Yeah. Well, it'll be a fun one too. It's always a good
Yeah.
game when it's CU and there's a lot of energy in the building. And there was in Fort Collins last year. There was in Boulder last time it was there. I know it will be this weekend as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. And yeah, have fun out there on Saturday night, and we'll see how the Buffs do. And then Sunday morning we'll find out where Buff Nation is going to spend the holidays.
And well, we'll probably cross paths possibly between the basketball games.
Yeah, I'll
So
see you. I'll
I'll
see you on
wave to
Saturday.
you. I'll wave.
I'll wave to you as well. And Pat, have a good rest of your week, and we'll chat on Sunday or Saturday whenever we see each other.
Sounds good. Look for that announcement on Sunday morning, folks. And as always, thanks for listening.